Welcome back, guys. Jay Taylor here with Sports Prophecy TV. And tonight we're going to break down a team that has been surging since 2018. Since they got a new head coach in Herdman, Canada has transformed the way they have played soccer. They have started to play a bit more attacking. They have a good defense. They haven't gave up a lot of goals in their qualifiers. Canada has become a tough team to beat. Canada has been like the talk of the town for the past year or two. This is a team that has been surging. We all know about the top Bayern Munich man, Alfonso Davis. We know about Kyle Larin. We know about Tejan Buchanan. These are the three players that are basically driving this revolution in Canada. But tonight we want to ask, are they overrated? Is this Canadian team the real stuff? Are they built for the future? Are they built for longevity? I want to know from the fans, and please leave your comments down in the comment section. I'm just gonna give my take on Canada tonight. I was watching a show the other night, and I heard the Canadian fans. They are so spoiled these days. I hear Canadian fans saying that if Canada doesn't win the Gold Cup, they should fire the head coach mid-game. We listen what I just said. They should fire the head coach mid-game. We're talking about Canada here. In 2020, in 2020, Canada was ranked, I think, number seven. They were ranked about 70 in the FIFA rankings, and they started to surge. They are currently ranked 40. They have won a lot of games. They have become difficult to beat. But I think the Canadian fans are just getting a bit too carried away. If you fire your head coach right now, Canada basically has to start over. And those three players that I just called out, Alfonso Davis, Tejan Buchanan, and Kyle Larin, if Canada don't have these three players, it's a total different team. If you start looking around the team, all the other players are decent players, but those players wouldn't just walk into your United States squad and start, or just walk into a Mexico squad and start. So I think the Canadian fans, all respect to Canada. I'm glad Canada is finally competing because I believe that more teams in CONCACAF, better teams we have in CONCACAF, the better it is for the region, the more respect we're gonna get, because teams like Canada used to be right around there. Nobody used to talk about Canada when we were going into the Gold Cup. Canada was just there to compete. Now Canada is actually there to win it all. They have a pretty good squad, guys. I can't lie to you about that. But one thing I do think that Canada doesn't really have the depth. If we remove Alfonso Davies, or we remove Tejan Buchanan, or Kyle Larin, I think Canada starts to struggle. Canada is not built to take on a team if they lose two of those top players. So I just want to say to the Canadian fans, just pipe down a little bit, guys. Enjoy the success. Don't start talking about firing your head coach. There are teams around the world right now who would love to have the head coach that Canada has. If you look at a team like Jamaica, who was ranked above Canada in CONCACAF in 2020, we were ranked fourth, and Canada was ranked number seven. Look at Canada now. Canada is all the way up there, and Jamaica is all the way down there, seven, eight. We're struggling. So Canada should just enjoy the success, support their team. And I must say, congrats to Canada as far as the government is concerned. Trudeau, he has really supported the team and helped the brand Canada. Even Drake got on board at one point. I remember Drake wanted to meet the Canadian team. So all the big stars in Canada and like the whole politician movement, they kind of went behind the team, got behind the team, and basically helped Canada to become this brand when it comes on to football. In the World Cup, Canada competed. Canada looked dangerous. They looked like a team that wasn't just in the World Cup to play in the first round. And I believe that that can take them a long way. However, this Gold Cup coming up is going to be a very interesting one for Canada because there's a lot of pressure on Canada. Canada, the United States, and Mexico. I think all these three teams, the fact that they're going to be hosting the next World Cup, I think they want to stamp their dominance right now on this region. But guess what? I think teams like Jamaica is a dark horse, El Salvador, Costa Rica. Costa Rica always have a squad on the older side, but they seem to always stick around and compete, guys. Let's never forget Costa Rica. I remember in the World Cup qualifiers, everybody thought that Costa Rica was one of those old teams. They just dig out the draw here and there. But when you look at it, Costa Rica was in the World Cup again. So lots of respect to Costa Rica. Canada, on the other hand, I think they have a pretty balanced team. But as I said, they have three players. And if you could neutralize these three players, I think Canada can be beaten. I remember in the National Stadium when Canada, they were flying in the World Cup qualifiers and Jamaica gave them a run for their money. Jamaica should have won that game. Canada should have never left Jamaica with a point in that World Cup qualifiers. However, Jamaica wasn't that good. We were inconsistent, and Canada happened to walk away with a point from that game. But in this Gold Cup, I think we're going to really see how good Canada really is. I know the fans are really hyping up Canada right now. Everybody know it's we can debate this, but it's stated that Alfonso Davis is the best player in CONCACAF at this moment. A lot of people wouldn't even know that Alfonso Davis is a left back, but the way he plays, he attacks so much. You would think he's an out and out like left winger, but he's a left back, guys. He's a good player. He's one of those players who has basically taken Canada to the next level because every team that's going to really shine. You need that marquee player. You need that one player everybody can look at and say, okay, we got this player. Now, Jamaica, we have a Leon Bailey. Now, if we get a Damari Gray, now we start looking at Jamaica a little bit different. United States of Pulisic, they have all those youngsters, Way, all those guys. They have top players. Mexico is loaded. But I think Canada is also here to make a statement. They're still in the Nations League. I think they also want to win that. But I just want to say to the Canadian fans, please be a little bit more cautious when you're talking about firing your head coach. Good head coaches are not easy to find these days. And if you find a head coach that's working, stick with him for a while. I think at least this head coach should stick around for Canada until the next World Cup. Then Canada could say, okay, he has maximized his potential and let's try somebody else. But trust me, guys, if Canada remove their head coach right now, let's say after the Gold Cup, they're going to be struggling going forward. Yes, they automatically have a berth in the World Cup, but I don't know how well they're going to compete because I think this coach Herdman has basically, when Canada suits up, Canada look to me like a mid-table Premier League team. The way they play, they attack, they have a little Brighton to them, a little Brentford to them, quite release. They can just attack you and they can defend very well. But I think the Canadian fans are a bit thirsty right now for that next step. They want Canada to go out there and be that dominant team that just runs through CONCACAF. But let me say this about CONCACAF, guys. It might not be the strongest region in football, but it's a difficult region to play in. If you look at the games that's been played in CONCACAF, the whistles, they blow the whistle a lot. The referees tend to take over the game. They tend to slow down the game, kill the momentum of the game. So sometimes when a good team go out there, they can't really get kicking and get going the way they want to go because the game is very choppy. It's a foul there. I would love to bring up the stats next time, guys, on the percentage of fouls when it comes on to the different regions. I think CONCACAF probably would be leading, tied with Africa or something. We commit a lot of fouls in the CONCACAF region, so the game is not very fluid. The game is a lot of stop and go, and that's not good for football. So a team like Canada, I think they want to play expansive football. They want to get on the football, just keep moving. I love the way how Canada has transformed the way they defend and the way they transition into attack. They look very dangerous. They look at times like they have no weaknesses, but trust me, this Canadian team can be beaten. And this Gold Cup coming up this summer in June, it's going to be a test for Canada. it's going to, because there's a lot of pressure on Canada. As I said, they're going to be one of the hosts of the next World Cup. Canada, United States, they're going to be under the gun. They're going to have to prove themselves, because trust me, United States want to win this on home soil. And a team like Jamaica is not just going there to compete. I think this head coach, Haimar Hallgrimsson, wants to make his stamp on the CONCACAF stage, also in the Jamaican setup, to show that, listen, this is a new Reggae Boys team. We can compete against everyone. When you look at Canada, I think where one place where I think Canada struggles is when they come up against teams that are very physical. Because when Canada came to Jamaica, Canada was playing very well, but the Jamaicans seemed to be a bit more physical, and that kind of threw Canada off their game. Canada don't like to play that physical game. They want to play in space where they could dominate position, where they could snap quickly out of defense into attack. So it's going to be interesting going forward. But I just want to say again to the Canadian fans, just take it down a notch. You're in CONCACAF, and anybody can lose in CONCACAF. You could wake up to a loss from a Costa Rica tomorrow, a loss from a United States, from a Mexico, from a Jamaica, from a El Salvador, from a Guatemala. It's a very tough region, even though the level of football might not be on the European level. But you have to understand how the game works. It's just like, let's go back to when Mikel Antonio was coming in for Jamaica. I told a lot of the fans that, listen, CONCACAF, the region, is going to neutralize Mikel Antonio, because the way the game is played in the region is not a very fluid game in the CONCACAF. Like, when you look at the European game, players have so much time on the ball. In CONCACAF, you don't have time on the ball. It's a lot of fouls, lots of hard tackle. So you have to adapt. You have to adapt differently on how you play. But Alfonso Davis, I have to say, that young man, he's a superstar. He has adapted to the game. That's a player who has transitioned his class from the Bundesliga into international football, because that's something that a lot of players struggle with. They might play very well for their club, but when they get onto the international stage or in the international arena, they tend to struggle, because the game is just a little bit more tougher. And remember, club football is like an all-star game. When you look over here, you have Messi, you have Neymar, you have Mbappe on one team. That's an all-star team. When you go and play international football, a team might have one or two of those players, or just one of those players, and you have other players who are just solid players who are there to get a job done. But I just want to say, guys, it's gonna be a really interesting Gold Cup coming up this summer. I'm gonna be checking out Canada, see how well they do as well in the Nations League. The fans, they're pretty hyped. They think that they should win it all. But I'm thinking the fans from the United States and Mexico have something to say about that. And if you look at a lot of those two teams that I talk about, they both have new head coaches. And when new head coaches come in, they want to state their claim. They want to make a name. They want to show that they're here to change things. I also put Jamaica in the mix. Trust me, I'm a Reggae Boys fan till the grave, so I have to put Jamaica in the mix. But if we could get certain things together and we could get some more players in, Jamaica will definitely be competing, and I could see Jamaica maybe beating Canada in the later stage, the semifinals or the finals of a Gold Cup, because they can be beaten. But we also have to respect the growth of Canada and where they are coming from. Herdman took over Canada in 2018. They were ranked 78th, I think, in the world. Now Canada is ranked 40. So if you look at their progression and if you look at their transition and how much they have improved, they basically have improved 38 spots. 38 spots. That means they just made a huge jump in the last 5 years. Unlike Jamaica, who was at 46 and we're in the 60s now. So that tells me that we jumped back 20 spots. You sometimes have to look at the FIFA ranking and you see your trajectory and see where you're going. And Jamaica has been going in the wrong direction. We recently, I think, jumped one spot, but you want to make that big jump when you're in international football. You want to jump 10 spots, 15 spots. That's how you start to pick up traction and start to turn over, and you start to get better friendlies. I think Canada is in a good place. They're a team that looks dangerous in all aspects of their game. As I said, I love how they transition out of defense into attack very quickly. And that's the sign of a good team. But thank you guys for tuning in again to Sports Prophecy TV. You had Jay Taylor here. Just want to break down a little thing on Canada and just get the fans to just pipe down a bit, because this is going to be interesting Gold Cup. It's not just going to be a walk in the park. There's a lot of good teams out there, and there's a lot of coaches who wants to make their name. When we talk about small teams, teams like Haiti, Curacao, those are the teams. I'm just waiting for those two teams to break out. I think Haiti is on the verge of breaking for the past 10 years. They just haven't seemed to get it together. However, it's going to be an interesting tournament. Thank you again, guys, for tuning in. Peace out.